Hi folks, this is Al with BaumBuilds.com with an instructional video for the BDT, the Bolt-together Drift Trike that you put together yourself. This video is intended to be used in combination with the Drift Trike build plans available on BaumBuild.com and on eBay from username Auto Beverage. Beware of imitations, buy only from the inventor. That's me. This particular video is going to cover 3 different assemblies. We're going to cover drawing 302, which is a sprocket assembly, drawing 304, which is the handlebar assembly, and drawing 306, the steering stop lobe assembly. We're already in front of the shop. Let's go in and get it done. The first sub-assembly we're going to put together is drawing 302, the sprocket assembly. And what I like to do is I like to have a clean work area, what I call a clean work area. So here's my workbench, free of clutter and any material, and wiped down relatively clean. And then what I do is I lay out all the parts that are called for in the bill of material in the drawing. So I have the drawing to refer to. You can either print it out or use your laptop and view it on screen. You have the tools, the hardware. In this case I pulled the appropriate quantities out of the containers and set them there, and then the 2 components. So establish your clean work area first. Let's take a look at the drawing for this sub-assembly. This is drawing 302, which is a sprocket assembly. It'll contain a bill of material in the lower right hand corner, as will all the drawings. Any assembly notes will be included in the upper left hand corner. In this case there are really none. It's a very simple assembly. Let's take a look at our tools. I always lay out the tools. In this case we'll just need a ratchet and a 7/16 socket. Now this is a 1/2 inch drive. You really don't need that. You could use a 3/8 drive if you have one. And a 5/32 Allen key. And that's it for tools for this assembly. Let's jump right into this assembly. I'm going to refer to the drawing. In every case we're going to refer to the drawing, and we're going to pay attention to stuff like the direction of fasteners. In other words, which direction is the head of the fastener, which direction is the nut. So in this case we can see that the fastener is going to go through the sprocket hub first, which is item 2, and then through the sprocket, which is item 1. So let's assemble it just like the picture. Here's my sprocket hub assembly, or my sprocket hub number 2 in the bill of materials, and my sprocket. And you're going to see there's simply 6 holes. We're going to line up those 6 holes. We're going to put the bolts in place. So here we have, just like the drawing, we have the bolts, the bolt head, the sprocket hub item 2, the sprocket itself item 1, and then the nuts in the back. Notice no washers in this assembly. Now a lot of the assemblies you're going to do for this project are going to have washers. In this case the material's thick enough, we don't really need a washer. Okay, so I'm going to tighten these down using my Allen key and my wrench, and we'll come right back. And so I've tightened all the fasteners down, and that's it. Now in my particular case I am going to paint this. I'm going to paint this black because I want my whole rear axle to have a blackout effect. Now you don't have to do that, or you can paint it any color you wish. So the next time you see this at the final assembly drawing, the final assembly stage, it will be black. So I'm just going to caution you that when you paint this, that of course you want to mask off this interior surface because it slides onto the shaft. It's a close fit. You don't want any paint in there, because if you do you're going to have to grind it back out anyway. And here's what it would look like painted black. You note that, again, that I masked the interior of the bore there. So that's it. You can either leave it unpainted or choose a color of your choice. Let's move on. Here's our clean work area for assembly 304, the handlebar assembly. As always, we have a clean work area with a drawing, the tools, all the components necessary for this drawing laid out on the table. Let's take a look at this drawing, drawing 304, handlebar assembly. As always, we have a bill of material in the lower right hand corner, various views throughout the sheet, and we have assembly notes in the upper left hand corner. Let's take a look at the tools necessary for assembly 304. We have a Phillips screwdriver and a 5mm Allen key. Also, this is optional if you want to use heat shrink, and I'll explain that in a few moments. We have a cigarette lighter and some super glue. Let's take a look at the notes. The first note, watch instructional video before attempting assembly. Well, that's what you're doing now. The second note is to remove and rearrange the bike handlebars. There was also an instructional video called Bike Disassembly that you should have already watched. But from that video you would have harvested this particular part right here, handlebar assembly kind of, as well as other parts. Back to the drawing, assembly note 3 says that we need to modify the throttle, which is item 1 in the bill of material. And we need to use spreadsheet items 101 and 102. You'll refer to your build plans for this. Okay, in order to get started, we're going to take our item 1, which is the throttle handle itself. You'll see this rotates, obviously. Now this will clamp to the handlebars. So we're going to take our Phillips screwdriver, and there's 2 screws here, and we're going to disassemble this. Okay, and with our 2 screws removed, we're going to open it up to reveal the inside here. And what you're going to notice right away is you're going to notice this brass cable plug right here. What we want to do is we want to remove that, and you'll see there's a little hole in it, and that's where we're going to fish our cable through. Now you'll also notice that this brass ferrule here has a big countersink in it. You can see there's like a big countersunk hole. It doesn't go all the way through, and then of course the one hole does go all the way through. So this cable, the cable itself on one end is going to have a round ball, and the other end is just going to be blank. So what you're going to do is you're going to thread this ferrule through such that when it comes back up through, the ball rests in this socket. And we're going to do that by taking the large end first and sticking it down over this cable, and then we're going to work it all the way around and back up through, and when you're done you'll see it rest right in that pocket just like that. And next we're going to take the free end, the other end of the cable, and we're going to fish it down through this piece that we disassembled here. You'll see there's a small hole in there. I mean, it'll be pretty obvious where it goes out through. So we're going to fish that right in through there, and you'll see it come out through the other side, and then just go ahead and pull the entire cable through there. Just like that until you get a couple inches from the end. So this is what you're going to end up with here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove this little black plastic ferrule. It's going to keep our cable sheath from going in there. So we're going to remove and discard this, and if you just pull it, I mean it's in there pretty tight, but you should be able to pull it out with your hands, if not a pair of pliers. So there it is, and you're just going to slide this all the way off the end of the cable here, just like this. And you could discard this. Next you're going to take the end of the cable sheath itself, and you're going to fish this free end down in there like I'm showing here. So go ahead and fish that all the way through. So this is what you should be left with. You got these pieces just like this. Here's the end of your cable. You're ready to go. Now if you choose to use heat shrink, now's the time you want to put it on. Actually, you could have put it on before the last step, but I'll simply take the other end of this cable sheath here, and I'll just slide this piece of heat shrink all the way around. So here's what we're left with right here. So next we're going to bring these pieces together. We're going to put the sheath inside the hole where the black spacer just come out of, and to do that I'm just going to glue it in place with some super glue to hold it in there, and then I'm going to slide the heat shrink up over it and shrink it down. And as we're working here, our workshop cat showed up. That's Philip. He's a stray cat that shows up every once in a while at the workshop, says hello, has a bite to eat, and goes on his way. He likes to watch us work sometimes. Let's get back to work. Next, we're going to take our throttle handle here, and we're going to put this ferrule right back into the hole it come out of. So I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to put it right back down in there, capture it, just like that. You got to push it in there pretty snugly, and then you can see that will wrap around that body there, and you'll just put that right back in there where you had it, and then you'll put the other half back on, just like that, and tighten it all down. Now if you'd like, you can put a little bit of grease in there, help the cable move a little bit slicker. I will do that off camera here, but we're done with this. We're going to set it aside. Now we're going to go back to step 2 and rearrange the handlebar components. So I'm going to set this aside, grab that assembly, and let's make it look like the drawing. Okay, here's the handlebar and stem as we harvested them from our bicycle. So although the brake lever is on the left-hand side, as if we would have been riding the bike, in our case, we're going to be using the handlebar backwards. We're going to be using it like this. So since we're going to have the throttle on this side, we need to get the brake lever moved over to the left side. So you'll notice also when you purchase your throttle that you not only get the twisting throttle, but you'll get the matching grip on the other side. In my case, I'm going to go ahead and use this so they match. If you'd like, you could use the existing hand grip from the bicycle, but then they won't match. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one, and then remove the brake lever, move it to the other side, and then I'm also going to remove this reflector. Just my choice. If you want to leave the reflector on there for safety, you're welcome to it, but I don't plan on riding at night. So let's rearrange this, make it look like the drawing, and we'll come back. Next, I'm going to take my 5mm Allen key, and I'm going to go ahead and just loosen this brake lever assembly, and we'll just pull it right off the end to relocate it to the other side. Alright, we're back, and I have the handlebar oriented the way it's going to be on the trike, and that's with the stem forward. And since the throttle is going to be on the right side, we're going to take our brake lever and we're going to put it back on the left side, and we're going to do that just by sliding it right back on there. And we're going to move it down, and just I'm going to overshoot here a little bit, leaving a little extra for my hand grip. So next, I'm going to push this hand grip on. Now these you can usually push on by hand, but they do get tight. The more you engage, or the further on you go, the tighter it'll get because of the friction. What I found is easy to alleviate that is to just put a little bit of dish soap in here. That'll help it slip right on, and then when the dish soap dries, it's solid as a rock. So we're going to go ahead and put that on there, and if I struggle, I'll just grab my dish soap, and we'll be right back. Yeah, I just pushed it down against the table, no problem, no dish soap necessary. If you feel you need it, go ahead and use it. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and move this caliper back a little bit closer to the grip, just like that. And then I'm just going to snug this a little bit. I'm just going to put maybe a little bit of twist on this. I am not going to tighten it, because at final assembly, when we establish our rider position, we might want to rotate that up and down to meet, ergonomically, to make it look the best and feel the best, actually. Here we have our handlebar. Very simple. We're just going to slide this over the end, so you may have to loosen this up to open it up a little bit. Open her up as much as you need to, and slide it onto place. Now again, we're just going to snug these just to keep it from sliding off the end. You'll make your final adjustments at final assembly after you sit on the trike and get your ergonomics the way you want them. So now once that's tightened, this throttle should still turn free. Okay, and that's it. You are done with 304. Okay, so this will be the throttle assembly for the two-seat drift trike. The first thing we're going to do is same trick we pulled when we were removing the cable from the bicycle. I'm going to come in here and put a little bit of super glue right here at the base of this swedged on lead barrel. I'm going to let that harden, and we're going to come back and snip that, and that'll keep that cable from unfraying. So we'll be back. Okay, make sure your super glue is completely dry, and snip this end off. Now remember, make sure you snip off the wrong one here, or the correct one here. One end of the cable is going to have this bend. The other end is going to be straight. We want to take it off the straight end here. So make sure that we cut the correct barrel off. So I'm going to cut that off. And next we're going to thread this back through here. I'm going to thread this all the way back through. You do the same, and we'll be back. Next I'm going to take our throttle here, and I'm going to take a screwdriver, and there's just two screws here. I'm just going to take these two screws out and separate this, and we'll be back. So after we have our throttle piece separated with our two Phillips screws, we're going to take the piece that has the cable exit boss here. Now there was a black plastic tube on there. We're going to discard that, and then we're going to take our cable, the curved end, as you see it here. There should be a nut on there, a flange, and then a rubber boot here. So we're going to take that boot and we're going to press that right into the exit there, just like that, and then we're just going to snug our nut down against it for now. That's going to hold that temporarily in there. Next, we're going to take the cut end, the end that we super glued and cut, and we're going to thread that right down through the cable, through the sleeve, and all the way out the other end. You do the same, and we'll be back. Okay, we're back, and we have our cable threaded back through there. Now see, I just have a piece of tape on here to make sure this thing doesn't sneak back in on me when I'm not paying attention. So that's it. You got that threaded properly. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our throttle grip here, which has an integral socket for this barrel. So we're going to drop that barrel right in that socket, just like that. And then you'll also see a groove in here in which the cable will ride around. You see that? So we're going to take that and go ahead and just put this right back in there, just the way it came out, with the barrel being trapped in there. So you'll set the other side of your throttle half on there, just like that. You'll run your screws in, and we'll be back. And we're back, and as you can see, we have an operating throttle cable. Okay, now you'll leave these screws loose and slip it over the handlebar, and then snug them down and slide it onto place. Now again, we're just going to snug these just to keep it from sliding off the end. You'll make your final adjustments at final assembly after you sit on the trike and get your ergonomics the way you want them. So now once that's tightened, this throttle should still turn free. Okay, and that's it. You are done with 304. And here's our clean work area for assembly drawing 306. We have our drawing, our tools, in this case one tool, our hardware laid out in the appropriate quantities, and our item 1, which is a manufactured kit piece. Let's take a look at drawing 306. As usual, it has a bill of material in the lower right hand corner with all the parts that you need. Any assembly notes in the upper left hand corner. In this case, the notes simply say, leave all fasteners hand tight for adjustment at final assembly, which makes sense because this is going to adjust our steering stop angle. So we want to be able to make that final adjustment after we put the entire trike together. The tools needed for this assembly is just one tool, a 3/16 Allen key. Here's our fabricated part, which is item 1, which is drawing 208 in your checklist when you purchase your kit. There's our shaft collar and our fasteners. As always, it's important to orient the parts exactly the way they are on the drawing. So let's make sure that we get this shaft collar looking just like this and just like this, meaning having the set screw in this position with respect to the gull wing here. Okay, so I'm going to put that together just like you see it, and we'll be right back. And we are back, and you see that I assembled it just like the drawing. There's something to note. This gull wing orientation here with reference to the set screw here. So again, we don't want to tighten these fasteners down. You can see there's a little bit of play. You can actually hear it between these two. Because at assembly, we are going to adjust this collar rotationally on the steering shaft. Now this is a split collar, as you can see. So when you tighten this down, it actually draws these two halves together, which is another reason we don't want to tighten these screws. Because if we tighten these screws now, we won't be able to actually draw the clamp tight when we need to. So at final assembly, and we'll talk more about this when we get to that instructional video, we'll make this adjustment, tighten this down, and then we'll tighten these. So that's it for drawing 306, the steering stop lobe assembly.